Hey, what's up you guys? This is Gabby and what are we going to talk about today? So this video is going to be really different from what I usually do. This is actually going to be a get ready with me and a chat about a social work topic of my choice. And that topic is going to be my experience being a minority student in the MSW program. Yeah, I'm totally barefaced. I don't have not a lick of makeup on. And I'm also gonna clean up my hair a bit, make it neat. So the reason I wanted to have this conversation was because it's basically a springboard off of a recent video I posted. If you didn't see it, definitely check it out. It is talking about my MSW experience as a whole. I delve really deep in that video and I really talk about everything from classes to the field placement experience I had, to extracurriculars I was involved in, to drama I had in the classroom. The classroom drama I had is very much connected to my experience as a minority in my MSW program. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. I have all of my items that I use to get ready every morning in front of me, and we're just going to dive right in. I will also preface this video by saying that I am not a makeup guru. I do not use the most expansive makeup tools and brushes and all of that. Honestly, the tool that I use the most when it comes to applying my makeup is my good old-fashioned fingers. Okay, so as far as Fenty Beauty concealer, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I totally like what Rihanna is doing in the makeup space and how she's being more inclusive. So I'm not gonna give her too much. I'm gonna work this concealer into my skin, and while I do that, I'll talk about one of the classes I took during my MSW experience that I saw as being a little bit problematic, and that is the Multicultural Class. This is no shade to the program at all. I'm a big supporter of the program, and I think overall I did get a good experience. But as any program out there are definitely areas that could improve, and I think this Multicultural Class is one of those areas. Me being a Black student, I felt that a lot of the course materials and the topics were really focused on teaching our white students how to provide social work services for minorities and African Americans. And there were not many non-white students in the program, honestly. So I think this is kind of how they justified, or how they would have justified, the topics and the focus of this multicultural class. There were not a lot of African Americans, and we had a few African Americans, we had a few Latinx brothers and sisters, we had people from different parts of the world who brought in some diversity as well. Two of my close friends were actually from different countries. So one of my good friends that I met in my program was from Israel, and another good friend was from China. So there was definitely some diversity, but on average, I would say the class was about, I could be a little wrong, but give or take 85% white people from America. In one token, I do understand why they decided to structure the classroom the way they did, but at the same time, people like me, someone who paid good money to take this class, it was a little unfortunate. The classroom topics would center around, this is how you work with African Americans. This is why saying this term to a Latinx person could be offensive. And some of that stuff, just being a minority in America, I already had known. I already kind of knew certain things. So I don't know, maybe it would have been a good idea for people to have the opportunity to opt out of that class after taking a test or something. I don't know, to test out of the class or something. Another reason this class was good for non-minorities is because it gave them the opportunity and the space to bring up different things or ignorances they may have had just simply from not being a minority. On the same token, it was a little bit hurtful for minorities and African Americans to be in that room and to hear all the different ignorances that maybe people had. For example, We had classmates who would ask questions like, why do we have to say Black Lives Matter? Why can't we say all lives matter? Or I remember someone bringing up the fact that they thought welfare was something that a lot of minorities were taking advantage of. So like a way that they were taking advantage of the system and using it to have an excuse not to work. Me having to sit and listen to that was not the best use of my time. And often I felt that I had to be the face of my culture and my ethnicity and try to explain certain things so that it could be easily digestible or understood from my non-minority counterparts. And that's not really what I signed up for. I don't mind helping out classmates with understanding things better, but at the end of the day, like, I didn't pay thousands of dollars to do that, Now we are going to move on to the next step in my makeup routine, which is applying my actual, what is this called? Brain fart foundation. So I'm also using the Fenty Beauty foundation, and I actually really like this one. I like it better than the concealer. I think this one is much easier to blend, and it gives a good coverage, especially if you have oily skin. And I'm also number 43 in this as well. And I usually mix my Fenty Beauty concealer with this Black Radiance HD primer. One thing I like about this primer is that it does have SPF 15 in it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my brush and mix the two foundations on that. Woo! Wow, you guys. I probably have some old powder on this brush, some powder residue or something, because this almost took me out, you guys. Another thing I remember us talking about in that multicultural class was that this is something the teacher brought up. White people have to be very diligent about making sure that they are fighting against racist ideologies, because if they're not, they're just perpetrating the system and perpetrating the issues and inequalities that minorities have to face. And the teacher also mentioned that white people are taught from a young age different racist ideologies and tendencies. And this was something that a lot of my classmates, my white classmates, did not like at all. Like, we had a lot of people who got very upset when being told this, because a lot of this was actually in material that we were reading and digesting. It was from studies and, from research. They were claiming that the research was wrong and accused them of being racist. There were a lot of outraged classmates in that specific class session. But the teacher had to really explain to people that, it's not something that white people intended to happen or really had a lot of control over. It's just, if you live in a society where you're taking in certain things in the media and you subconsciously take in messages and perceive messages that says that you are more worthy simply from being white, that is going to make you more likely to see minorities as being lesser than in some way. If you don't acknowledge that and work to fight against that, then you are perpetrating this system. It was just interesting to see the reactions that my classmates got from that, because I don't know, I thought it was something that we all kind of understood, but apparently that's not the case. Okay, so this seems to be pretty blended in. But yeah, it's just important for white people to acknowledge that, because if they don't, then they can't truly be supportive of minority communities, because they won't be able to see the shortcomings within their own selves, and they won't be able to check themselves and get better when it comes to race relations. Okay, you guys, now we are going to move on to our mascara. So I use just some standard drugstore Maybelline Colossal Lash or something. So another thing I want to talk about is being a minority, and specifically a Black minority, and the fact that you may be one of the few people in your class. A lot of minorities and Black people are first generation master's degree students and the first people in their family to ever have gone after getting a master's degree. And that can be because their family simply didn't have the generational wealth to send their kids and their prior generations to grad school, Or it can be, you know, if you look around you and you don't see a lot of people in your family that actually went to grad school, you don't really see that as something that is possible for you. Or it may be something you don't even think about simply because you just don't have people around you and family members who have done it in the past. So because of all of these things, you may not see a lot of other minorities in your classes. So you'll definitely have to go the extra mile to find other minorities to befriend. I made good friends with non-Black people, and you know, that was great, but there's really nothing like being around people who share the same background and ethnicity. You want that sometimes, right? So you may have to look outside of your classes to find that. So now I'm going to move on to my brow liner. I use this every day just to make my eyebrows look a bit more even. I'm also gonna touch on the fact that you may not see a lot of professors that look like you when you are a minority in your MSW program. And you know, it's a little bit sad because you want to see people who look like you in those leadership professor roles, but it may not always be the case. I was lucky in the fact that I did have a lot of, or a nice amount, I would say, of minority and African American professors, both male and female. So I do see myself as being thankful in that way. And I did go to school in Chicago, so you know, there's a lot of diversity there in general. And also, I think the topic of social work yields more African Americans being in that profession just because of the nature of the work, right? When you are doing social work, specifically in the United States, a high number of minorities are struggling with social issues. So it makes sense that people who are also minorities would want to study those issues and be a part of finding solutions for those issues. Okay, you guys, so my eyebrows are naturally uneven, and this was something that used to really, really bother me. But as I got older, you know, you just have to come to accept your flaws. And I started to look at other people's faces and see that their eyebrows are also not totally even. It's like, whatever, you know, nobody's perfect. I'm trying to get them as even as possible, but today may not be the day that that's gonna happen. Every day I wake up and I'm like, is this gonna be the day when my eyebrows become even? Some days it's just not gonna work. So now I'm going to add just a little bit of MAC Studio Fix powder, and I've been using this for many, many years. I am number NW45. And I wanna get into my internship experience with you guys. So one benefit of being a minority student is that you may be able to build relationships with your client at a much faster rate. This also depends on where you get your MSW training from. But as I mentioned before, in this country, in a lot of major cities, minorities may be struggling with social issues at a more advanced rate than non-minorities. You may find yourself working with a nice amount of minorities when you are at your field placement. Since you may have that shared experience with your minority clients, you know, that will help you to build stronger relationships just because they can see themselves in you and you just have that shared understanding. They may not have as many trust issues regarding you than they would someone else who did not look like them. And now I am going to use my Sephora Baked Sculpting Palette. They don't actually have these in the stores anymore. The only place I can get them is online. And as I mentioned earlier, from being a minority student, you may be first generation and you may be coming from a family who did not have the generational wealth to pay for your college experience. So you may find yourself having to get a side job or, you know, a part-time job to fund your studies. And that's something I definitely had to do. I had a part-time job working as a hostess in a restaurant during my MSW experience. And I did it my first year, but my second year I could not do it anymore because I just, you know, I had to focus on that last year so I could actually graduate. Oh yeah, and I meant to say, so bringing it back to your internship experience, as a minority, working with other professionals who may or may not be in the social work realm, you will have a very unique opportunity to sometimes have to educate people on how and how not to work with minorities. So you may hear one of your colleagues say something that could be offensive to minority clients. So you may have to pull them aside and kindly explain to them why what they said was offensive and how they should probably never say that in their client's face. You know what I mean? So you may find yourself having to play two sides of, you know, just being a normal employee while also being a trainer on how to properly work with minorities. So yay! Fun, right? Fun. Now I'm going to put on a little bit of just standard chapstick. And then on top of this, I'm gonna put on my favorite Sephora cream lip stain. I love this color, you guys. It is my favorite. It's like a nice brown nude. It works well with my skin tone. What do I do in the morning when I'm trying to clean up my hair, unfrizz it a bit? So I'll say this, when I wake up in the morning, this is how my hair looks. That is the beauty of having locks. I am very low maintenance, so I like the fact that I have a constant style. And for anyone who is curious, I just put a regular bonnet over my hair at night, and right now I have an old braid out, and I wash my hair about every 3 weeks. I add conditioner to my hair about 3 times a week, 3 to 4 times a week. And what do I use to moisturize my hair? I use a very simple mix of water and an oil of my choice. So whether that's olive oil, grapeseed oil, mixed with water and spray. So yeah, this is what I use. It smells really good. I love the smell of oils. Minority students definitely take advantage of scholarship opportunities out there. Due to the history and different barriers in place, we may not have the generational wealth to go to school without taking out loans. Definitely take advantage of any type of scholarships out there. And look, scholarships for minority students are not handouts. In my opinion, it's just helping to level the playing field. So definitely take advantage and don't let anyone make you feel guilty about that. Do your research and talk to recruitment team at your grad school program or for the grad school program you're interested in, and ask them about scholarships for minority students. All right, and as far as how do I kind of manage frizz, I simply just take pure aloe vera gel. This is actually 97.7% pure. I wanted 100% pure, but I couldn't find it, so this gotta be good enough, right? This is kind of lazy, you guys. If there was like a percentage, I would say that I'm like 20% free-forming and 80% maintaining my locks. I do get my hair interlocked as a way to maintain it, and I also, you know, self-maintain it by doing what I'm gonna do now, which is just kind of like using the aloe vera gel on the edges as well as around any area where my hair is visible. Honestly, like I said, this is kind of a lazy way to do it because I don't really have time, you guys. Like, I don't know, I'm just not patient enough to spend 3-4 hours in someone's chair once a month to maintain my hair. And I also don't think it's healthy for your edges and your scalp. So after I do that, I simply grab any parts that is frizzy, any frizzy parts, as you can see, and I just wrap it around the lock that is closest to. And I understand that doing this may not yield super clear parts and super defined parts, but I totally believe in like self-care when it comes to beauty. And there's a lot of women who are like, yeah, my form of self-care is getting a facial and getting my hair and nails done. And oh my God, you guys, like that is just not my way of self-care. I do keep up with my beauty. It's something I care about, and I think it's, you know, it's important because it just shows how you treat your exterior is proof of how you feel, and it often mirrors what's inside. So I think it's good to keep up with your exterior, but I just can't be bothered with like the amount of time and energy that a lot of people put into different beauty routines and rituals. So I grabbed the frizzies and I just wrap it around the closest lock. So it's almost like I'm doing twist with the frizzy, like one end being the frizzy hair and then the other end being the closest lock. So yeah, being a minority student in your social work program can be a challenge, but I am very happy that there are a nice amount of minorities who are interested in social work, because I just think it's so important to see your reflection in the individuals who have leadership roles around you. As far as this get ready with me, this is pretty much it. I cleaned up my edges, made sure my hair is looking fresh, put on my makeup, very low key. This is probably, yeah, I would say this is my everyday makeup look. And let me know if you have any comments or any points to add to the conversation around being a minority student in your MSW program. And make sure to like and subscribe to this video if you stuck around this long. And I will talk to you guys in my next video, you guys. So see you later.